The morning sun cast long shadows across Heathrow Airport as Queen Camilla prepared for her private departure to France. She had insisted on traveling with minimal security, claiming she needed a quiet weekend away from royal duties. Her personal assistant, Sarah, wheeled two large suitcases behind her as they approached the VIP terminal. Detective Inspector James Mitchell had been working airport security for 12 years, but today felt different. He had received an anonymous tip earlier that morning about suspicious activity involving a high-profile passenger. The caller's voice was shaky, nervous, and they hung up before providing details. Mitchell's instincts told him something wasn't right. As Camilla's small entourage moved through the terminal, Mitchell noticed her unusual behavior. The queen consort, normally composed and graceful, appeared anxious. She kept glancing over her shoulder and checking her watch repeatedly. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her pearl necklace, a nervous habit her security detail had never observed before. Sarah, the assistant, seemed equally on edge. She gripped the luggage handle so tightly her knuckles turned white. When airport staff approached to help, she quickly declined, insisting she could manage alone. This struck Mitchell as odd since royal assistants, typically welcomed, helped to ensure smooth operations. The anonymous caller had mentioned specific flight details that only someone with inside knowledge could have known. They spoke about Camilla's private jet departure time and gate number, information that wasn't publicly available. Mitchell decided to trust his gut feeling and quietly assembled a small team of trusted security officers. As they watched from a distance, Mitchell noticed Camilla's conversation with her pilot seemed tense. She handed him what appeared to be additional documentation, which he studied carefully before nodding reluctantly. The pilot glanced around nervously before putting the papers in his jacket pocket. Airport protocol required all passengers, regardless of status, to submit to security screening when specific intelligence suggested potential threats. Mitchell knew this would be delicate, given Camilla's position, but his duty to public safety came first. He approached the royal party with professional courtesy. "Your Majesty, I'm Detective Inspector Mitchell with Airport Security," he said with a respectful bow. "We've received information that requires us to conduct a routine security check of your luggage before departure." Camilla's face went pale, and she exchanged a meaningful look with Sarah. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Inspector. I'm traveling on urgent royal business, and these bags contain sensitive materials that cannot be examined by unauthorized personnel." Mitchell remained polite but firm. "I understand Your Majesty's concerns, but I have authority under the Aviation Security Act to inspect any luggage when we receive credible intelligence about potential security threats. This applies to all passengers without exception." The tension in the air was thick as other passengers in the VIP lounge began to notice the commotion. Camilla's protection officer, a stern man named Agent Reynolds, stepped forward and whispered something urgently in her ear. She closed her eyes for a moment as if weighing her options. "Very well, Inspector," Camilla finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I insist this be done privately, away from public view." Mitchell nodded and led the group to a secure screening room used for high-profile security checks. As they walked, he noticed Sarah had begun to sweat despite the air conditioning. She kept looking at the exits as if planning an escape route. In the screening room, Mitchell's team prepared their equipment while Camilla sat in a chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She stared at the suitcases as if they contained something that could destroy everything she held dear. The first suitcase sat on the examination table, innocent-looking but somehow ominous in the sterile room. "Shall we begin, Your Majesty?" Mitchell asked, his hand hovering over the first zipper. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Whatever was inside those bags was about to change everything. Mitchell slowly unzipped the first suitcase, his trained eyes scanning for anything unusual. What he found initially seemed normal for a royal trip: expensive clothing, jewelry cases, and personal items. However, as he carefully moved aside silk scarves and designer dresses, his fingers detected something hard beneath the fabric lining. "There's a hidden compartment here," he announced to his team, causing Camilla to shift uncomfortably in her chair. With practiced precision, Mitchell located the concealed zipper and opened the secret section. Inside were dozens of small unmarked packages wrapped in plastic and sealed with tape. Agent Reynolds stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. "Inspector, I must protest this invasion of Her Majesty's privacy. These items are likely personal medications or royal artifacts, but Mitchell's experience told him otherwise. The packages were uniform in size and weight, professionally sealed and hidden with obvious intent to deceive. He carefully removed one package and held it up to the light. The contents appeared to be small, irregularly shaped objects that caught the fluorescent lighting. "Your Majesty," Mitchell said carefully, "I need you to explain what these packages contain." Camilla remained silent, her face now completely drained of color. Sarah, who had been standing by the wall, suddenly spoke up. They're special dietary supplements. The Queen Consort has specific health requirements that must be kept confidential for security reasons." Mitchell wasn't convinced. The packaging looked nothing like medical supplies, and the way they were hidden suggested something far more sinister. He made a decision that would change the course of the investigation. "I'm going to need to open one of these packages for examination." "You cannot." Camilla finally spoke, her voice cracking with emotion. "I forbid it. As Queen Consort, I have certain rights and privileges that protect me from this kind of treatment." But Mitchell knew that no one, regardless of title or position, was above the law when it came to airport security. He carefully cut open the first package with sterile scissors, revealing its contents. Inside were dozens of small rough stones that glittered in the light. They appeared to be uncut diamonds, each one potentially worth thousands of pounds. The room fell silent as everyone processed what they were seeing. Mitchell's team exchanged glances, knowing they had stumbled upon something much larger than a simple security check. He opened a second package, then a third, finding similar stones in each one. "Your Majesty," Mitchell said slowly, "these appear to be uncut diamonds. Can you explain why you're attempting to transport what looks like several million pounds worth of precious stones without declaring them?" Camilla stood up abruptly, her royal composure finally cracking. "You don't understand what you're doing, Inspector. These diamonds, they're not what you think they are. This is a matter of national security that goes far beyond your clearance level." Sarah began backing toward the door, but two security officers blocked her exit. Her face was now streaked with tears, and she appeared to be having trouble breathing. "Please," she whispered, "you have to let us go. People will die if we don't complete this trip." Mitchell's mind raced as he processed this new information. Were they looking at a smuggling operation or something even more complex? He decided to examine the second suitcase, hoping it would provide more answers. As he reached for the zipper, Camilla made one final plea. "Inspector Mitchell, I'm begging you to stop this investigation now. Contact your superiors, contact the Prime Minister if necessary, but please don't open that second case. Some secrets are kept for the protection of the realm itself." But Mitchell had come too far to stop now. The second suitcase was heavier than the first, and as he opened it, he discovered why. Beneath a layer of royal garments lay sophisticated electronic equipment, communication devices, and what appeared to be encrypted hard drives. There were also several passports with Camilla's photo but different names. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about smuggling diamonds. The equipment suggested espionage, the multiple passports indicated false identities, and the combination pointed to something that could shake the very foundations of the British monarchy. Mitchell realized he was no longer dealing with a simple airport security matter, but potentially one of the biggest scandals in royal history. Agent Reynolds suddenly moved toward Mitchell, his face grave with concern. "Inspector, I need to speak with you privately. There are things about this situation that you don't understand." He glanced meaningfully at Camilla, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Mitchell instructed his team to secure the evidence while he stepped aside with Reynolds. The agent's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "What you've discovered isn't a crime, Inspector. It's a covert operation that's been 18 months in the making. Those diamonds and equipment are part of a mission to rescue British citizens held captive abroad." "That's impossible," Mitchell replied. "If this were an official operation, I would have been briefed through proper channels. And why would the Queen Consort be personally involved in something this dangerous?" Reynolds pulled out his secure phone and showed Mitchell an encrypted message thread. 3 British aid workers were kidnapped in Central Africa 6 months ago. The government couldn't negotiate their release through normal diplomatic channels because admitting their presence there would create an international incident. As Mitchell read the messages, His understanding of the situation began to shift dramatically. The communications showed detailed plans for a prisoner exchange using the diamonds as payment to local warlords who controlled the region where the hostages were being held. But why Camilla? Mitchell asked, still struggling to believe what he was seeing. Because she has connections in the region from her humanitarian work years ago. People trust her there in ways they would never trust government officials or military personnel. She volunteered for this mission when all other options failed. Sarah, who had been listening from across the room, finally spoke up. My brother David is one of the hostages, Inspector. He was working with a medical charity when his convoy was attacked. The kidnappers have threatened to execute all 3 prisoners if ransom isn't paid by tomorrow. Mitchell felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. If this was true, his security check had potentially doomed 3 innocent people. But his training told him to verify everything, especially claims this extraordinary. I need independent confirmation. Mitchell stated firmly. This could be an elaborate cover story for actual criminal activity. Reynolds nodded understandingly and made a secure call. Within minutes, Mitchell's own supervisor was on the line, speaking in coded language that confirmed the operation's legitimacy. However, the supervisor also revealed that the mission had been compromised. Intelligence suggests there's a leak in the operation, his supervisor explained over the secure connection. Someone has been feeding information to hostile forces in the region. Your security check may have inadvertently exposed the entire mission. The room's atmosphere grew even more tense as everyone realized the implications. If the wrong people learned about the rescue attempt, the hostages would likely be moved or eliminated before any exchange could take place. Camilla finally broke her silence, her voice filled with determination despite the circumstances. Inspector, those 3 people have families waiting for them at home. David has 2 young children who think their father is coming home soon. The other hostages include a doctor who is treating sick children and a teacher who is building schools. Mitchell studied the faces around him, seeing genuine fear and desperation rather than criminal deception. The electronic equipment he had discovered was actually sophisticated communication gear designed to maintain contact with the rescue team already positioned in Africa. If this operation is legitimate, Mitchell said slowly, then my investigation has created a serious problem. But I still need to understand why this wasn't coordinated through proper security channels. Agent Reynolds explained that the mission's secrecy was essential because previous government rescue attempts had failed due to information leaks. By operating outside normal channels and using Camilla's personal connections, they hoped to avoid the intelligence networks that had compromised earlier efforts. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Mitchell recent photos of her brother and the other hostages, clearly taken in captivity. The images were heartbreaking. 3 frightened people in a concrete room holding signs with recent dates to prove they were still alive. The exchange is supposed to happen tomorrow morning, Sarah continued. If we don't arrive with the diamonds and communication equipment, the kidnappers will assume the deal is off. They've already killed 2 other hostages from a previous group. Mitchell realized he faced an impossible choice. He could follow protocol and detain everyone while higher authorities sorted out the situation, potentially dooming the hostages. Or he could trust what he was being told and allow a potentially illegal operation to continue. As he weighed his options, his phone rang with another call from his supervisor. The news was devastating. Intelligence had confirmed that the hostage situation was real, but they had also intercepted communications suggesting the entire rescue mission had been discovered by hostile forces. The devastating news from Mitchell's supervisor changed everything. Intelligence intercepts show that someone has been feeding information about the rescue operation to the kidnappers, his supervisor reported grimly. The hostile forces know about the diamond exchange and are planning an ambush. Mitchell looked around the room with new suspicion. If there was a leak in the operation, it could be anyone present. He watched carefully as each person reacted to this revelation, looking for signs of guilt or deception. Camilla appeared genuinely shocked and heartbroken. This can't be happening, she whispered. We've planned this so carefully. Those poor families. Her distress seemed authentic. But Mitchell knew that skilled operatives could fake emotional responses. Agent Reynolds immediately began checking his secure communication devices, his face growing darker with each message he received. The situation is worse than we thought, he announced. Our advance team in Africa has gone silent. They were supposed to check in every 6 hours, but we've heard nothing for 12 hours. Sarah collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. My brother. They're going to kill my brother because someone betrayed us. Her grief appeared genuine, but Mitchell couldn't rule out the possibility that she was the leak, using her emotional connection to deflect suspicion. Mitchell made a decision that went against his instincts but aligned with his duty to protect innocent lives. We need to identify the source of the leak before making any decisions about the mission. Everyone in this room is now under security, observation until we can verify their loyalty. He instructed his team to begin background checks on all personnel involved in the operation while keeping everyone isolated from outside communication. However, within minutes of starting this process, they made a disturbing discovery. One of Mitchell's own security officers, someone he had trusted for years, had been making unauthorized communications throughout the morning. When confronted, Officer Peters initially denied any wrongdoing, but his phone records showed encrypted messages sent to unknown recipients at suspicious times. I can explain, Peters said desperately as Mitchell's team surrounded him. I wasn't betraying the mission. I was trying to get additional support because I knew it was too dangerous for Her Majesty to go alone. But further investigation revealed that Peters had gambling debts totaling over £100,000. His financial records showed recent payments from offshore accounts that couldn't be traced. The evidence suggested he had been selling information about airport security operations for months. You've killed 3 innocent people, Agent Reynolds said coldly as they placed Peters in custody, and you've put the Queen Consort in mortal danger. The kidnappers now know exactly when and how she was supposed to arrive. Camilla stood up with renewed determination. We have to change the plan. If they're expecting me to arrive with diamonds at a specific location, we'll have to find another way to reach the hostages. Mitchell realized that his security check, despite exposing the leak, had also created a new timeline pressure. The kidnappers would be expecting their contact to report on the airport situation. When Peters failed to provide updates, they would know something had gone wrong. How long do we have before they realize their source has been compromised? Mitchell asked. Reynolds checked his watch grimly. Peters was supposed to send an update in 30 minutes. When he doesn't, they'll assume the worst and probably move or eliminate the hostages immediately. Sarah looked up through her tears with sudden hope. What if we let them think the mission is still on track? Could we send false information to buy more time? Mitchell considered this possibility. Using Peters's phone, they could potentially send misleading updates to the kidnappers, making them believe the operation was proceeding as planned, while secretly developing an alternative rescue strategy. But Agent Reynolds shook his head. Too risky. If they suspect deception, they'll kill the hostages immediately. These aren't people who give second chances. As they debated options, Mitchell's supervisor called with urgent news from intelligence services. We've located the hostages using satellite imagery, but the situation is critical. The kidnappers are preparing to move them to a new location, probably because they suspect something has gone wrong. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. They had perhaps hours, maybe less, before the window for rescue closed forever. Whatever they decided to do would have to happen quickly and without any margin for error. Camilla made a decision that surprised everyone. I'm still going, not to the original location, but to the new site where they're holding the hostages. We'll have to improvise a rescue operation. Absolutely not, Mitchell and Reynolds said simultaneously. The plan was already dangerous enough without adding the complication of protecting the Queen Consort during an active rescue mission in hostile territory. Despite everyone's protests, Camilla remained firm in her decision. Those people trusted me to bring them home, she said with quiet authority. I won't abandon them now because the situation has become more dangerous. Mitchell found himself in an unprecedented situation. As an airport security officer, he had no authority to prevent the Queen Consort from traveling, but he also couldn't allow her to walk into what was clearly a death trap. Agent Reynolds was already coordinating with military contacts. If Her Majesty insists on proceeding, we'll need immediate support from Special Forces units in the region. But even then, the chances of success are minimal. The situation became more complex when Sarah revealed additional information she had been withholding. There's something else you need to know, she said hesitantly. My brother isn't just an aid worker. He's actually an undercover intelligence operative gathering information about terrorist funding in the region. This revelation changed the entire scope of the mission. If David was captured while conducting intelligence operations, his death would not only be a personal tragedy, but could compromise ongoing counter-terrorism efforts across Central Africa. Mitchell's phone rang with another update from intelligence services. The satellite imagery had revealed something disturbing. The kidnappers were not just planning to move the hostages. They were preparing for a significant military operation using the ransom money. The diamonds weren't just payment for releasing prisoners, Mitchell's supervisor explained. Intelligence suggests they were going to be used to purchase advanced weapons for terrorist activities throughout the region. Agent Reynolds cursed under his breath. So we were unknowingly about to fund a major terrorist operation. The leak might have actually saved lives by preventing that transaction. But Camilla wasn't deterred by this news. Then we find another way to rescue them without providing funding for terrorism. There has to be an alternative. Mitchell made a decision that would define his career. "I'm going with you," he announced, surprising everyone in the room. "This started as my security investigation, and I'm not walking away while people's lives hang in the balance." "Inspector, you're not trained for this kind of operation," Reynolds protested. "You'd be more liability than asset in a hostile environment." But Mitchell had served in the military before joining airport security, and his experience included deployment in similar regions. More importantly, he had developed a personal investment in seeing this through to its conclusion. Sarah also volunteered to join the mission. "David is my brother, and I know the region better than anyone here. I've visited him 3 times during his assignment, and I have local contacts who might help." As they planned their desperate rescue attempt, new intelligence arrived that changed everything once again. The advance team that had gone silent wasn't dead. They had been captured while conducting reconnaissance and were now being held with the original 3 hostages. "So now we're looking at rescuing 6 people instead of 3, Reynolds calculated grimly, "and the kidnappers know we have operational capability in the area." The rescue mission was becoming more complex by the hour, but they also received encouraging news. Local tribal leaders who had worked with David during his legitimate aid work were willing to provide assistance, but only if they could verify that the rescue team included someone they trusted. "That's why I have to go," Camilla insisted. "I met with several of these tribal elders during my humanitarian visits. They'll work with me when they wouldn't trust government officials." Mitchell realized they were committed to a course of action that could either save 6 lives or result in an international disaster that would destroy careers and potentially destabilize an entire region. As final preparations began, they received one last piece of crucial intelligence. The kidnappers had split the hostages between 2 different locations, making the rescue exponentially more difficult. They would need to coordinate simultaneous operations at sites 50 miles apart, with limited personnel and resources. "This is impossible," Reynolds stated flatly. "We don't have the capability to mount 2 simultaneous rescue operations in hostile territory." But Camilla had one final surprise. She revealed that she had been in communication with French special forces through back channels, and they had agreed to assist with one of the rescue sites in exchange for intelligence, sharing about terrorist activities in their former colonial territories. The mission was becoming an international operation involving British royalty, airport security, military special forces from 2 countries, and local tribal allies. Success would require perfect coordination and enormous luck. Failure would result in multiple deaths and a diplomatic catastrophe that could take years to resolve. 24 hours later, Mitchell found himself crouched behind rocky terrain in Central Africa, wearing military gear he never thought he'd need again. The rescue operation had moved with lightning speed once all parties committed to the mission. Camilla, despite wearing tactical gear, maintained her dignified composure as they approached the first hostage location. Local tribal allies had provided crucial intelligence about guard positions and building layouts, but the operation remained extremely dangerous. The plan was elegantly simple, but required perfect timing. While French special forces assaulted the second location 50 miles away, Mitchell's team would create a diversion at the main compound, allowing Camilla to negotiate directly with the tribal leader, who actually controlled both hostage sites. "Remember," Agent Reynolds whispered through their communication system, "Her Majesty makes contact only after we've secured the perimeter. No heroics from anyone. But as they moved into position, they discovered the situation had changed again. Intelligence intercepts revealed that the kidnappers were planning to execute the hostages at dawn as a message to Western governments, regardless of any ransom payments. Sarah, monitoring communications from their mobile command post, received devastating news. The French team has encountered heavy resistance at the second site. They're requesting immediate backup, but we don't have additional resources. Mitchell made a split-second decision that violated every protocol. I'm taking half our team to assist the French operation. Her Majesty can handle the negotiations here with local support. Absolutely not, Reynolds protested. We don't have enough personnel to split our forces. But Camilla supported Mitchell's decision. The tribal leaders here respect me. I can complete this negotiation with minimal security, while you save the people at the second location. As Mitchell's team raced across the desert terrain, they maintained radio contact with both operations. The French forces had successfully breached the second compound, but discovered it contained only 2 hostages, David and 1 member of the advance team. Meanwhile, Camilla's negotiation was proceeding better than anyone had expected. The tribal leader, who had known her from previous humanitarian visits, was willing to release his 4 hostages in exchange for a promise of future medical aid for his community, rather than diamonds or money. She's actually doing it, Reynolds reported in amazement. The tribal leader is releasing the hostages based on his personal respect for Her Majesty and her previous charitable work in the region. Mitchell's team arrived at the second location, just as French forces were completing their extraction. David was weak but conscious, and he immediately asked about his sister and the other hostages. The relief on his face when he learned about Camilla's successful negotiation was overwhelming. As both teams prepared for evacuation, they received one final surprise. The tribal leader who had released his hostages also provided intelligence about other Western prisoners being held by different groups in the region. His information could lead to additional rescue operations in the future. 6 hours later, all 6 rescued individuals were receiving medical care at a secure facility. David's reunion with Sarah brought tears to even the most hardened military personnel present. The other hostages, including the advance team members, were exhausted but grateful to be alive. Mitchell sat with Camilla as they waited for their flight back to London. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I owe you an apology for doubting the mission's legitimacy. Camilla smiled tiredly. Inspector, you were doing your job by questioning suspicious activity. If you hadn't exposed the leak in our security, more people might have died. Sometimes the right thing looks wrong until you understand the full situation. The flight home was subdued but hopeful. The rescued hostages shared stories of their ordeal while planning their return to families who had feared the worst. Sarah held her brother's hand throughout the journey, still not quite believing he was safe. Agent Reynolds reviewed after-action reports with Mitchell, noting that the unconventional rescue operation had succeeded precisely because it operated outside normal protocols. Sometimes, he admitted, airport security officers make better field operatives than trained agents. As they landed back at Heathrow, Mitchell reflected on how a routine security check had evolved into an international rescue mission. The diamonds and communication equipment that had initially seemed suspicious had ultimately saved 6 lives and disrupted terrorist financing networks. The official reports would be classified for decades, but the participants knew they had been part of something extraordinary. Camilla's luggage had indeed contained shocking items, but not for the reasons anyone had initially suspected. Her willingness to risk everything for strangers had demonstrated the true meaning of public service. 3 months later, Mitchell received a new assignment to a joint task force focused on counterterrorism intelligence. His experience with the rescue operation had revealed talents he never knew he possessed. Sarah returned to her normal life but maintained correspondence with the tribal leaders who had helped save her brother. Most remarkably, Camilla's humanitarian connections in the region led to the rescue of 12 additional Western prisoners over the following year. Her luggage incident had become the foundation for an ongoing covert operation that saved lives while maintaining complete secrecy from the public and media.